Well, welcome to the Arena Record Podcast. We're excited about our guest today. With us today, we have Scott Grover. He's a PBR, PRCA, and I'm sure some other association announcers as well. But Scott, thank you for coming on. And if you don't mind, kind of tell us where you're from, a little bit of your background.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm from a little town of Camden Point, Missouri, which is probably bigger than the little town that I grew up in. I grew up in north central Kansas in a little town of about 100 people, and that was counting cats and dogs and everything that went on in town. And didn't grow up in a rodeo family, but just loved rodeo. So I'm literally living out my dream every day that I get to go to work.
That's exciting. That's kind of how I grew up.
1,000%.
Small town. I didn't have a lot of rodeo around me, but I've had a passion for it ever since I was a little kid, and so it's something I really want to do.
So how did you get introduced to rodeo?
So my mom tells me when I was about 2 years old, they took me to a rodeo, and I wouldn't sit still the whole time during the rodeo. I loved it. And in our little town, believe it or not, there were two churches. There was the Methodist church and the Christian church. Mom and I went to the Christian church. My dad went to the Methodist church. But the Methodist preacher loved rodeo, and he went to the NFR every year in Oklahoma City at that time. So he would send the Pro Rodeo Sports News home with my dad every 2 weeks. So and it came out every 2 weeks at that time. So I would lay on the floor, look at all the pictures. And I like to tell everybody that I learned how to read by reading the sports news, because I would have Mom tell me what the captions were. So there was only one guy that was kind of well-to-do in town. He had a satellite dish, and so he would record the NFR every year for me, which only came on the championship round that Heston had. And I wore out tapes of the NFR, and it was just ingrained. It was this passion that I had for the sport. And there were times where in school, I could tell you the top 15 in the world, but I couldn't tell you what I learned. I didn't care.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have a chance again to rodeo. My mom and dad were, my dad hauled propane. My mom was a nurse, and I got a horse when I was 12 and did some 4-H stuff. But when I went to college, I was like, man, I got to figure out how to get involved in rodeo. Mm-hmm. I was too scared to ride bulls. I didn't know anything about. I could rope a little bit, but not great. And I went to school in Beatrice, Nebraska, the junior college there, and there was a lady outside of town that had a junior rodeo every 2 weeks, and we would go out there and help, my roommates and I. And I just got up the nerve one night to drive out to her house and tell her pretty much that I thought her announcer was terrible. And she said, well, I'm sorry you think that, but he's what I've got, and that's how it is. Well, lo and behold, 2 weeks later, he got sick. I got a job. And then it was, the stock contractor came to me and said, hey, do you have a sound system? And I said, yeah. I didn't have a sound system. And he goes, I got a bull riding in Ashland, Nebraska. Would you like to do it in the summertime? And I said, absolutely. So I took that job, and I took some more jobs. And then I kept driving. Even when I transferred to Kansas State, I kept going back to this lady's house every 2 weeks and announcing. And like I'm announcing a junior rodeo this week during the NFR, but there all day. Yeah. Okay, it's mic time.
Yes.
And I tell everybody, I put the blinders on, and I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm college trained to be a ag education teacher, and I did that for 4 years, and then I did all the other little odd jobs that somebody has to do to get by in life, and then announcing just became my full-time gig, and it's just been such a blessing that God put me on this path, because there was nothing else I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved in rodeo, and I just, like I said, I put the blinders on and said, hey, I believe God's given me this talent. I'm going to make this work one way or another, and it's worked.
That's awesome. Did you compete ever, or did you just get into it right off the get-go, wanting to be an announcer?
Yeah, so team roped a little bit, and all I was somebody that paid their fees to make somebody else rich. I wasn't good, and I probably haven't roped for, I don't know the last time that I sat on a horse and roped. It's a passion of mine. I love it.
Yeah.
And I help my son and this and that, but I still don't have a good rope horse around the house, and it's just not. I'm so busy doing this, and kids are hockey and they're gymnastics and all of these things. So, but yeah, I love roping. I just never was very good at it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned kids, so tell us about your family.
Yeah, so my wife, Becky, she was a Miss Rodeo, Missouri. And then our son, Statler, who's 10, our daughter Lano, who's 8, and Clemmy May, who's 3. And Statler's a hockey player, and he loves everything rodeo. I mean, it's nonstop with him. And Lano's an amazing gymnast, and Clemmy, who's named after Clem McSpadden, is probably talks as much as Clem ever did. She's 9-0 all the time, I'm the most blessed guy on earth. I've got a beautiful family, and an amazing wife, and an amazing support system that gets to go with me a lot, and it's awesome.
Yeah, that is exciting. I mean, and the cool thing about rodeo too is it seems like it's such a family sport, and it's so family oriented that it's a great place to have your family around you.
Yeah, and we're a little bit we're a little different too. So we have a motorhome that we travel in all the time. So they're with me a lot more than a lot of guys get to take their families down the road, and we live in that motorhome too. So we're together in a small space all the time, so we don't know how to be apart.
Yeah.
You know, we spent, like Becky and I came out the first part of the NFR by ourselves. That's about only the 3rd time we've ever left them since Statler was born. And then I was away from them for a couple days, and they flew back out. So, you know, It's just we always say we're better together, and I always tell my rodeo committees, you get me, you get the whole circus. Like we're all coming, so get ready.
We can relate. That's kind of how we started our relationship, was working together, and if we're apart, that's when we don't communicate
have issues,
well.
Exactly.
So you're doing the Junior World Finals here, and that goes on the same 10 days, or is it longer? Tell us about that.
No, it's the same 10 days. It's Thursday through Saturday. So the first 5 days were bull riding, bareback, and saddle bronc, and calf roping, and then now we're on steer wrestling, team roping, barrels, and pole bending. So, but what an amazing opportunity to watch the next generation come along. You know, Las Vegas Events puts this event on, and like last year, Pecos Tatum, Cole Clemens, who qualified for the NFR this year. You know, so we're constantly seeing those guys, and then like today, Cash Robb showed up, and Tyler Wagasback showed up to help the steer wrestlers, and Cash is a past champion of the Yeti Junior Finals. So it's just great job, great gig. Great way to stay in Vegas for the entire time, because
for sure.
This is how we do our business for the year. You know, it's all about relationships and growing the announcing business and all of the things that we've got going on, and you have to be in the epicenter of Western sports to do that. And right now is the hottest 10 days in the world when it comes to rodeo, so you got to be here.
Absolutely, it's nonstop. We do a lot more when we're here than we do the rest of the year.
No, I hear you. Yeah, and we in no time.
Yes.
Yeah, you're just constantly running from one thing to another, or trying to shake somebody's hand. Or, I got up to meet a guy the other day and went, I don't have any business cards on me because I had 3 different coats on, and I left 2 of them over here. So it's been a crazy time. But I love Las Vegas. We're usually here, 2 times a year between the PBR and the NFR. So it's Vegas has kind of became our second home, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, speaking on that, beyond the Junior World Finals, what other events do you typically announce?
So I've been very blessed to work for the professional bull riders for about 12 seasons. Done 7 PBR World Finals as the 3rd announcer there on tour, been the voice of the Velocity Tour. And then, I got my PRCA card in 2005, and the PBR really wasn't on my radar at that time, and it's kind of one of those things that kind of fell into my lap, and then created an awesome way for us to really grow our businesses and to announce some amazing events. I mean, I've announced an AT&T Stadium. Who can say that?
Incredible.
And so I've had an opportunity to learn an amazing production. The PBR's production is far and beyond above anybody else's. And so that has helped me then in my rodeo business. It's really helped me to be a more well-rounded rodeo announcer, to bring a production aspect to some of those events. But, I get to Claremore, Oklahoma, the Utah Days of 47 in Salt Lake. I announced that. I announced Elko, Nevada, the brand new Rough Rider Cup in Mandan. I do Abilene, Kansas, which was where I grew up, sitting in those stands, watching Phil Gardenhire ride into the arena with Liesl Harris as a clown going, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I've done the National Final Steer Open now twice, which is a huge passion of mine. And I'm one of the voices of the National Western at Denver for 16 days. And I dreamed about that rodeo, okay? But I never would have thought that the call would have ever came to say, we want you to come to the first major indoor rodeo of the year. You know, that is a huge, and it's like, it's emotional for me, because I remember sitting in those stands as a high school FFA instructor and watching Boyd Polhamus say, hello, Denver, and the place go nuts and go, I want to do that someday. But never believing that I would stand right next to him and announce with one of the greatest voices that rodeo's ever had. So it's, I have an amazing schedule that the little kid from Mooreville, Kansas just dreamed about as a little kid, and now I'm getting to do it. So it's pretty awesome.
That is killer. I love to hear that. I relate to that a lot. So when it comes to rodeo versus bull riding, do you prefer one over the other? Like, do you enjoy doing a bull riding versus a rodeo, or?
I have such a passion for rodeo. It's where I started. And one thing about rodeos, I do a lot of them horseback, and I love that. I love being out and about in the middle of the action. There's a mystique about bull riding, though, and the comfort of, I've been doing it for so long that I can literally, fly in that morning. I've had times where the production managers called me and said, hey, are you coming to the announcer stand? Because I'll be back having a cup of coffee and a cookie, and go, I thought we started at such and such a time. I'm like, no, we're starting now. So I've run out there and done it, and that's been so ingrained in my mind for a while. There's just different aspects to both, and there's a different workload with both, and there's a different way that you prepare and all of those things. So you use the same thing. Announcing is announcing, and that's how I've always taken it. And you can take, because there's been a big controversy of, well, you're a PBR guy. Okay, well, no, I'm a Western sports guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to break that persona right now. I'm a Western sports guy. Now, I'm not PBR guy. I'm not the rodeo guy.
Yeah.
But you can take what we've done in the PBR and transfer it to rodeo.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rodeo announcers that are doing that. Okay, they're telling the stories like Brandon Bates and Matt West and those guys do, and I do on the PBR trail. We're doing that now in rodeo, and so at the end of the day, it's people want to know about the characters and the athletes of our sport. So we just have to find that way to tell them and kind of break the mold of, well, we've always done it this way. Okay, well, that's the phrase that can cost you the most money ever in life, is we've always done it this way. And so it's been fun to be able to get more rodeos now than I've had in the last, 10 years of my career, and tell the stories of the rodeo athletes too. So, yeah, I don't know that I have one that's, I can't say one's my favorite necessarily. But I love rodeo. I love watching horses buck and watching guys rope. It's just, but that's where I started. That's my, where a lot of guys, they grew up watching the PBR. Okay, well, I grew up watching the NFR and watching pro rodeo. So those were the guys I knew as a kid, and so to get to go back and then now introduce my heroes, like, I know Joe Beaver, I know Trevor Brazil, I know those guys. Like, they'll shake my hand and say hello to me, and that blows my mind. Those were guys that I watched and kind of, I don't like to use the word idolize, but I did. I looked up to them. Yeah. And I introduced Trevor Brazil yesterday at the Resistol rookie banquet, and I said, the old story about don't meet your heroes because they'll disappoint you. That guy's never disappointed me. He never has disappointed me. And I know he doesn't have all perfect days, but he's a guy that's always been good to me, good to my family. And that's one cool thing about rodeo, is just everybody, we're just a family, and Western sports as a whole, not just rodeo, but we're just a family. So.
Yeah, you talk about heroes and people you've kind of looked up to. Is there anyone on the announcer side that really kind of mentored you or poured into you, or even not on the announcer side of things, someone that kind of helped you along the way that really kind of made a big difference in your career? Probably
Clem McSpadden. So I grew up listening to Justin McKee, because Justin did all the college rodeos. Okay. Yeah. And but then when I got my card, my first rodeo was Claremore, Oklahoma, and Clem McSpadden had done that rodeo for 30 years. Okay, so I get to show up as the brand new kid and work with Clint McSpadden. And what that guy showed me in a short amount of time was, even more than he ever knew that he showed me. It was just he just had a way of letting me know things and this and that. And I looked up to guys like Phil Gardenhire, but Phil passed away before I got to know him. And but one of the things was when I got started, there was some local guys around. Max Stoll was an announcer in Kansas that I remember growing up listening to, and I would go to Max's shop. He would rebuild tractors, and I would go to his shop in the afternoon. We'd just talk about rodeo. And but when I got started and really asked guys for help, they don't want to help me. Mm-hmm. There wasn't really any schools to go to at that time, but it was more of you'll figure it out, and that always stuck with me, and it always stuck in my craw a little bit and made me a little bit upset. And so that's why I've always wanted to be the guy that helps somebody else. And if they steal my job someday, it's because they're better than me, or it wasn't my job to begin with. So, yeah, I mean, I had, of course, Bob Tallman's the greatest of all time, and I think Boyd Polhemus is the greatest voice of my generation. And, and even guys like Matt West, like Matt and I mean, Matt's younger than I am, but Matt has opened more doors for me. I mean, he helped open the PBR door, because we got to work together on a last-minute deal in Louisiana, and we became friends that day, and he knew that I had a passion for the sport, knew I did a good job, and he's like, hey, we need some more guys. Yeah. So let me introduce you to this. Let me introduce you to this. And the next thing you know, I had a Built Ford Tough Series event in Thackerville, Oklahoma, and then all of a sudden I'm all over the place. And so, yeah, it's there's a lot of different people that forge your path, I guess, for you. So.
Yeah, and it's exciting to hear that you're doing a lot of that, because we're big on that too. Like I come from a place where there's not a lot of that around me. There's not a lot of rodeo. I mean, and what is there is not substantial. So it's harder, and for me, in the day and age growing up, it was harder for me to find access to that stuff. YouTube and all that wasn't a thing yet. So I really didn't have anybody around me that I could lean into that could feed into me that way. Now it's a little more easily accessible with online presence, but it still isn't where you can find just anything you want out there, especially in things like announcing or being a rodeo clown or those special niches in the rodeo world. So you're trying to address that yourself.
Yeah, we so it was 2 years ago, I think. So Becky and I had owned a modeling agency in Kansas City, and we had owned it for about 10 years, and we were kind of dabbling on that side. And then we went to the PBR finals one year, and I started looking around at all the sponsors that were going on and this and that, and I said, let's agent some guys next year. So we put together a little team of some bull riders, and we did the agent deal, and that was one of the hardest, most disheartening things I've ever done in life. It was extremely hard. It's extremely cutthroat. It was just mind-boggling how hard it was. Okay, so we ditched that part, and then it was about 2 years ago. I'm sitting there again, and I'm like, when are we going to teach these athletes how to talk? We're doing them a disjustice by sticking a camera in their face, trying to get them to interview, and they don't know what to say. So we talked about it Becky and I talked about it over the summertime. We created a website. We were going to call it Big Top Rodeo. That had been her brand, and I said, can I take your brand? Like, I'm sorry, but it's catchy. It was just...
Listen, you're married. You're one now.
Exactly. Like, can we use it together? And
I love it.
Because her background is so awesome. So she got to perform with Ringling Brothers when we were dating. So she got to be in the circus, and that's something that she has always loved, was the circus and rodeo. Okay, so one year for Christmas, I got a little canvas made, cross stitch, that said Big Top Rodeo, and it had a carousel horse with this tent. And then if you look at the top of our logo, there's a spur on the top of the tent where a flag would be. Well, that was from another adventure that we were on with a shoe. And so anyway, we put all this together, and then we sat on it for a year, and I'm like, it's just, something's not right. It's not the right time. And I kind of got quiet, and just sat back and didn't push it. And then when the PBR team started to get bigger and bigger, I was like, I'm going to go and we're going to figure this out. I want to work with Western sports athletes on just interviewing better. So I put it out on social media about it, and then all of a sudden I've got announcers reaching out saying, hey, I know you're putting one-on-one Zooms together for athletes, but I'm having trouble with this. Can I do a one-on-one Zoom with you? I'm like, okay. I said, well, send me a video of what you're talking about, and we'll break down the video, but if you're afraid to get your feelings hurt, I don't want you to call me.
Yeah.
Okay, because if you want my advice, I'm going to give you my advice. I'm not here to hurt you, but if you're soft skinned, don't come talk to me about it. So I was able to break down some videos for some guys and just say, hey, try this, or you're saying this word. You just said ladies and gentlemen 9 times in a 3-minute period, okay? Think about what you're doing and why that is wrong and how it could annoy somebody else. So that went well, and then I was sitting around one night, I'm like, hey, Beck, you think I could put on a school? Nobody else is putting on a school. And she's like, try it. So in October, I got with my good buddy Jesse Knutson, and I said, hey, Jesse, would you teach the music director side? I'll teach the announcer side. Let's see what happens. So sold out the 12 spots on the school, and it was just it was amazing. And we didn't. I like to say it was more personal development than it maybe was professional development. Like we prayed twice a day. Everybody checked their egos at the door, and it was about building a bond of men in that room that were going to be better when they left there. So that school went amazing. I couldn't believe it. And then I was like, you know what? I think I've got enough. I had enough people calling me. Maybe I could do 2 a year. So about 3 weeks ago now, I put it out there again. I'm going to do one in March, and I'm at 10. I've already sold 10 spots.
Amazing.
So it's just it's awesome. And I had somebody the other day go, well, man, you're training the guys to take your jobs. Well, again, maybe.
Yeah.
And maybe if they do and they're successful, they'll say, hey, thanks, Scott. But that's not what it's about. It's about just giving somebody an opportunity to be better, because we need better storytellers in this game. And it is competitive. Like in the PRCA, I mean, we just got done with the national convention where you go and you set up a booth, and there's 800 PRCA rodeos, and there's 200 announcers.
Yeah.
The odds of you being busy are not very good if you're brand new.
Yeah.
It's taken me a long time to get the list of rodeos that I have. But yeah, I knew there was an opportunity with Big Top. I just didn't know that it would be as big as it. I didn't know it could grow as fast as it could. My passion is still to help out Western sports athletes talk better.
Yeah.
And and I finally have some parents that are reaching out, and we're talking, because we spend money to send them to camp, to roping clinics. We go up and down the road. But what happens when you went around and the Cowboy channel sticks a camera in front of your face and you stumble around with what you're going to say? Or you just rode a bareback horse, and not 10 seconds later they're wanting you to catch your breath and talk. Okay,
Yeah.
let's teach you how to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but nobody else is doing it either.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's I think that it's something that is needed, and I'm, like I said, when I started, nobody wanted to help me. And that was my biggest reason for wanting to do this, is I just want to help people be better. And it's not about, we make money doing it, okay? And it's another added way to make money for my family. But it's, at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. It's about growing Western sports.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You hit it right there, because you're correct. You may teach somebody and bring them up, and then they may take over your job, or they may have a rodeo you don't have, and that little town loves that rodeo so much that now they've got a second one coming. Well, now there's a second rodeo somebody can get hired at. It's about a rising tide raising all ships, in my opinion. And the more that people feed into it, the more that people do their part in their square, in their town, the more it grows overall. And we've talked about this a lot with people that are really resistant to change, because rodeo is full of folks who don't want anything to change. If you don't change, you die. And we want it to live, we want it to grow, and be here for our kids and grandkids to enjoy too. So the things that you're doing, I think, are key in making sure that rodeo as a whole keeps up with other entertainment venues, other sports, and because it's truly a unique thing in sports and entertainment, where some sports aren't necessarily that way, but rodeo sure is.
Well, and we're all fighting for the same entertainment dollar. So, I mean, you just look around this casino right now and all of the, Smash Burger. I'm looking at a Smash Burger sign right now. And, okay, the CEO of Smash Burger probably doesn't know anything about rodeo. So, but if he wants to get involved in rodeo, but he goes, I think I like that guy right there, and that kid doesn't know how to talk.
Yep.
Or like I used to love when we were an agent. I would sit there during the interview and I would thumb through their social media. And I would make a decision right there on whether we were going to take them or not. Because if I saw something on your social media that made me not want to invite you to my family's dinner, then I wasn't going to represent you.
Yep. Yeah. I don't want to put my company name on your chest.
Exactly. And it could have been you taking a picture with a beer half drunk or giving the middle finger or whatever it is. I'm not going to support that. Right. You're going to know cut and dry pretty much with me. And I even tell my rodeos, you're going to figure out pretty quick. I love this country and I love God. And I'm going to give you both of them during this 2-hour performance. Not going to beat you over the head about it, but you're going to figure out who I am.
Yeah.
And it was the same with representing guys. So we have such a huge opportunity with Western sports that, and more money than we've ever seen before, more huge rodeos than we've ever seen before. But if we don't protect that and we don't grow that from our athlete standpoint, then we lose it and it goes away.
Yeah. So you touched on PBR teams. What have you had a lot of experience on the production side, or have you been more on the agent side with it?
Yeah, so we got out of the agent game. That was like I said, that was hard. We we dove out of that. I've done a few live events for PBR teams. I haven't really been involved that much because of the time of year that it is. It starts in July and runs through October. So that's still time where I have big rodeos, and I rodeo now up until almost the end of September. So it's kind of put a little bit of a damper on my fall PBR schedule. So I'm kind of the spring guy now, where after Denver I'll go to a few, and then but I've got Battleborn Bronx now has moved to the spring, and I've got the George Paul Memorial next year, and picked up Window Rock in June. So it's kind of just things are just filling back in even over top of the spring. So yeah, it's but I think PBR teams has been an amazing opportunity. And I didn't, and I'll be honest, and I've even told Sean Gleason, I thought he was crazy.
We kind of had the same response because we were like, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
How is this going to be? And it's funny because we are like the biggest teams fans now. Like it's such a good event.
Yeah, and that's the same with me. Like I remember looking at Sean in Kansas City. It was maybe the third event they had, and I went, I was looking around. I didn't say much, and he said, I know. And it was the last game of the night, and it was Kansas City versus, it doesn't even matter. But the crowd started booing the opponent.
Yeah.
And I looked at Sean, and I said, holy crap, this is going to work.
Yeah.
I said, I didn't see it until right now. And he goes, it does, doesn't it? And I said, it does. I said, it works. And, Colton Hevelo, who rides for Kansas City, they just moved, but they used to live 15 miles down the road from us, and he got to ride for his hometown team. Well, that created buzz in Kansas City for us.
Yeah.
And we have another sports team now on top of the Royals and the Chiefs. And I've been surprised. The growth of it just makes sense. It really does make sense. The only thing that it does, and it pushes guys to be better. Like, because if you're not riding good, there's not a team going to pick you up. And then the other end of that is, if you ride great during the individual season, but you don't ride great during the team season, well, you might not get back in the individual season.
Yeah.
So it's done some shifting around. There's a lot of new kids that are coming. There's a lot of times where they'll go and, pick off some quote-unquote rodeo guys and bring them over. But I think it's been, it's been cool. Kid Rock's rocking rodeo.
Yeah.
What a great event.
Heck
the WCRA
Yes, big fan of the WCRA.
Good rodeo, and when the WCRA come along, there was a lot of controversy. And my deal has always been this: good rodeo is good for rodeo, and great rodeo is even better. Why stand in the way of what is good for this sport? It's all the same players. It's not like anybody's going to, I'm wear the PRCA brand. I'm not going to rodeo over there. Yeah, you are. There's too much money not to rodeo over there. And at the end of the day, it's still rodeo.
You can still use that money to drive to a PRCA rodeo.
Yep. And the deal is, the people the group that runs the WCRA, Sean with the PBR, guess where they're at this week? They're at the very best rodeo in the world. They're coming to Vegas to support the PRCA and the National Finals Rodeo. So it is, at the end of the day, we're all Western sports. We're just trying to make it a better place for all of us to make a living.
Yeah. I know you've mentioned a couple times there wasn't anybody that want to help you, but you're an incredible speaker. And where did you develop that, or did you always have that?
No, I would say it was FFA.
Okay.
When I was in high school, FFA was huge in our little town, and it was FFA in church. Like I learned how to sing at a pretty young age, and I wasn't afraid to get up in front of a crowd and sing and play guitar, learn to play guitar. But FFA was kind of the deal, and I was a chapter officer. I was never a district officer. I wasn't a state officer. And then when I went to college, I took some speech classes, but I wasn't afraid, like small groups, like talking in front of 20, 40 people, that bothers me a little bit. But talking in front of 20,000 isn't a big deal. And I don't, guys say, well, if you don't get nervous, you better quit. I don't much get nervous anymore. Like, there's some days where I do. Saturday nights still make me a little nervous, but I'm going to work. This is what I do. And so it's became more comfortable to me to talk and lead discussions, whether that's a Bible study or announcing or whatever it is, or, public speaking in front of a group. And but it took me a while, and I tell my class this: you have to find your voice. Okay, so who was my guy? I said it was Justin McKee, right? So when I started announcing, I announced like Justin McKee because that's what I knew.
Yeah.
And I still have some Justin McKee tendencies. You'll find me a little Justin, a little Wayne Brooks. I have those tendencies about me, but all of a sudden I found Scott Grover.
Yeah.
And now guys emulate Scott Grover.
Right.
And you find that person that you think does a good job. Like I'll still go back and watch what Phil Gardenhire did on anything that I can find, and realize that I have a lot of Phil Gardenhire tendencies with the way that I end phrases or whatever it is. So we all kind of find our voice, and we all have to kind of turn it on a little bit. You turn on this announcer voice. It just depends how much you have to turn it on. And I find out that anymore I don't have to turn. It's not a created voice anymore. It's just me, just talking and doing my deal. Now, when I get loud, you do these acrobatics with your voice and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's just Scott Grover now talking, and it's became my voice. Yeah. So, but being comfortable, and it took me a while to be comfortable. You had those days where you're pretty nervous, and I still remember my first pro rodeo, and thinking I'm ready. Because I didn't go fast into the PRCA. I was very lucky to work for guys like Jimmy Carruthers in Kansas, who put on amateur rodeos that were pro. They were 2 hours. If you didn't get them done in 2 hours, you were in trouble. We're going to do things like this, and they were great rodeos. So I really honed my skills there, and I wanted to make sure I was ready to go to the PRCA. So when I got my card, which is kind of another amazing story about how I got my card. But when I got it, I wanted to make sure I was ready, and then I realized I wasn't ready. Yeah, I was green as a gourd. Yeah. And I'm lucky that committee even hired me back, and I've been there ever since. But luckily they had enough faith in me to keep me, because I don't think I was very good for those 3 performances at that rodeo. But it is what it is. We're here now. So.
Yeah.
Will you tell us about how you got your card since you mentioned it?
Yeah, so it's so I owe a lot to the Lucia family. I don't know anything to Anthony, but no, that's not true. So I had applied for my card, and I was working a little rodeo in West Texas, in Wellington, Texas, and Tommy Sr. was there with Whiplash. And I grew up watching Whiplash and in his glory, the horse that Tommy had. And we get done with the first performance, and little Anthony comes up in the announcer stand. He said, "Hey, Dad wants to have a hamburger with you." I went, "Man, what did I do wrong?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "But Dad doesn't ask to have a hamburger with very many people, so you probably better go." So I went down, sat there with Tommy, and had a hamburger, and he was asking, "Where are you from? What do you do?" He was very, very nice to me. And he said, "Hey, when you did the horse act, did you feel it?" I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Did you feel it right here in your throat?" And I said, "No, sir, I didn't." I said, "I was too nervous." And he goes, "Well, you need to feel it tomorrow." I said, "Okay." 3 perf rodeo. So the next night we go out and do the act, and as I'm telling the story, I'm starting to choke up a little bit. And I'm like, there it is. Figured it out. So we get done with the rodeo. Here comes Anthony. Dad wants to have another burger. Those burgers must be good. So I go over there, and I talk to him and again, and he just was such a mentor to me. And my card was in the mail pretty much, and I got it, and then a couple months pass, and Steve Gander calls me, who owned the world's toughest rodeo. So I thought, and said, "Hey, Scott, I've got Peoria, Illinois. I've got this list of rodeos. Tommy Lucia told me to use you. I want to try you out." And I'm like, the biggest rodeo I've ever worked was Wellington, Texas, and Canton, Kansas. I got to fly somewhere? So I'm teaching school. Yeah. So I'm like, sure, man, I write these dates down. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to take these Fridays off and convince my principal, blah, blah, blah. Well, about 2 weeks later, Tommy Joe Lucia calls me and gives me the same dates in the same cities. And I said, "I'm sorry." I'm naive. I'm like, "I'm sorry. I can't work for you. I'm already working in those cities and those dates." And he goes, and you could tell he's disgusted with me. "Yeah, I just bought the company. You work for me." He said, "I don't know who you are. Dad says you do a good job. Be there." Okay.
That's hilarious.
And Tommy Joe is he's not as intimidating now as he was at that time. But I show up, he introduces me as the guy that I think he's announced some 4-H rodeos before. I don't know. My dad says he's good. We're going to try it. That's how I get introduced in front of this entire group.
Oh, my gosh.
And the first night of that rodeo in Peoria, I forget to do the pyro warning. And he looks at me and goes, "You forget that again, you'll never work for me as long as I live." So I've never forgot a pyro warning since then. But he gave me an opportunity to get in front of those big towns and and teach me the production of a big production. So between Tommy Joe, and little Anthony at that time, that was kind of my start. And then Tough Hedeman called, and then it was working for the CBR, and then George Marshall, and then Jerome Robinson, and then the PBR, and then more PRCA rodeos. And it was just this transgression of getting to work for the very best producers in the world, and learning my craft from the time that I was 21 years old, where I was able to walk into my principal's office and say, "Hey, I'm quitting." And you go, "Why?" "Because I can make more money on a weekend rodeo than you can pay me an entire month of teaching school." And it was the path from the time that I was sitting on my mom's knee at a rodeo, not being able to sit still because I loved it, to where I'm at now, and God's just put me on that path to do what I'm supposed to do.
That's awesome. So let's circle back to your family just a little bit, because I should have asked it earlier, but you said your wife was involved in the circus. What did she do?
Yeah, so my wife and her cousin applied for a show called Made, MTV Made. Well, it was MTV Made, and then it was CMT Made. So I grew up on MTV Made, and anyway, they applied for a show because my wife she did a lot of modeling stuff, and was actually, and tried to get on a bunch of TV shows. Well, anyway, you put on there what your dream job would be. And they put on there, we want to be in the circus. Well, they got picked. So they made an entire show about them training to do the aerial silks.
Yeah.
And so they went through all this training, and then their surprise is, hey, you guys get to perform with Ringling Brothers.
Oh my gosh.
So they spent, I'm not sure exactly how much time, but they got to perform at the AT&T Center in downtown Dallas with them. And then what that did was that allowed us to then know Jonathan Lee Iverson, who was the last ringmaster of Ringling Brothers, the last true ringmaster. Like, Ringling Brothers is back now, but it's not what it was, okay?
Yes.
And the elephant trainer, Joey Frisco, is good friends of ours. Like, whenever I'm in Louisville and that time, he's always calling me, hey, are you here? Are you at the bull riding? Blah, blah, blah. And Andre McLean, he's an amazing horse trainer, lives now in Kansas City, but, with us. So we got to have then so many friends with the circus, and we all figured out we were all in the entertainment business, and we could draw off of each other. And so sawdust, as the circus people say, sawdust is in your veins.
Yeah.
And I think I know that if I would say, hey, we can run away and join the circus, she'd be out the door faster than me.
Yeah.
And Lano loves, like, we've got a silk deal at the house, and Lano loves to perform on it. And I think if I would say, yeah, Becky and Lano, you can go run away with the circus, we would be on a circus train right now with somebody going up and down the road performing. So, yeah, that was an amazing experience for her that I would love to be able to give them back that time and go and spend time with a circus group. It's just getting to where that's a hard business to find anymore.
It is. These legacy families are just, they're dying off, to be honest. It's really sad. I mean, we come from a performing background. We performed at Dolly Parton Stampede for years. So similar, we have so many connections just from that job with so many specialty acts and entertainers that it's wild how small the world feels. But yeah, it's tough.
And the saddest part of that, and we, so Becky's family owns a commercial carriage company in Kansas City. So we have a carriage company that runs right now through the Christmas season. And so protesters, okay? So people that animal rights people that don't like what we do, okay? It's the same with the circus, and it beat the circus.
Yeah.
But what they don't understand is you didn't beat the circus, you devastated families, okay? Families that's all they knew. And what do they do next? They don't know how to not be performers. That's all they've done for generation after generation after generation. It's the same in Western sports and in our business. That if we don't take care of our way of life, this is generational. This is what we know. I've always said this with, like, on backstage tours with the PBR, and I love giving tours where I can tell people what we really do and how we don't abuse animals.
Yeah.
This is what we do. And I always say this, I don't like Thai food. It makes me sick. I don't like the smell of it. But I don't go down to the local Thai restaurant and hold up a sign that says this guy's place is terrible.
Yeah.
Because guess what? This is how he feeds his family.
Right.
So why would I take that away from him? So in turn, I kind of ask people that are against what I do, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. And that's okay. That's why we live here. We live in the greatest country in the world. But you're killing my family. You're taking my way of feeding my family away from me. And why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, why would people want to be that way? And it's something I don't understand. I guess I'll never understand why people are that way. But yeah, the circus was amazing to get to know those people and be around them. And when we grew up, going to the Shrine Circus was a big deal with us. So the Zambinis and stuff like that was the families that I grew up learning about and stuff. So it was such a generational thing that is just, it stopped, and everybody thought they were saving animals, but they were hurting the whole deal at the end of the day. So.
Yeah, because the people that work with them on a daily basis are the ones that care most about their conservation. Absolutely. Yeah, whether it looked like it to the outside world or not, it was
Yeah, when you were behind the scenes, you knew how much care and passion that they had, and it's just like a stock contractor.
Yep.
How much care and passion they have for their animals. It's not just about making money. It's not exploiting anything. This is the way we do it, and we love our animals, and that's why we want to see them perform at the best of their ability, and that's why we spend millions of dollars every year on feed and whatever else it is to make sure we got the best. It's not. We're not trying to do anything evil here.
No.
So it's crazy.
So, moving forward, what is your 5 or 10 year, whatever you want to call it, plan? What's your end goal, and what would you like to see out of your career?
Out of my career, I've got. I want to be the announcer of the year. I really do. That has been a dream of mine. I want to get on that stage. Even if a top 5 plaque would be great. Love to have the buckle. I would love to announce the NFR at least one time in my career, and then I'd be pretty happy. Rodeo for me has always just been about being able to make a living and having my family with me. So I'm doing that. So and buckles don't define you, and we say that a lot, but buckles are pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
to earn them is very cool.
Like I've got like my first National Final Steer Open buckle from 2017. I cried when I got that thing because I had been waiting so long to say that I was good enough to work that event, and I loved it. And then they didn't let me go back until 2024.
Yeah.
Okay. And the buckle that I wear now is shiny. And again, I cried when I looked at that buckle because I wasn't sure I was ever going to get another one.
Yeah.
And now Statler wears the 17 buckle, and I look at it and go, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
And somebody the other day said, man, Statler, that's cool. You get to wear an NFR buckle, and he does.
Yeah.
And so to be able to work, now 2, and hopefully they'll let me go back again, and then hopefully someday I'll get to stand in the Thomas and Mack and announce the NFR. I really would like to do that before I'm done. And I don't know how long I've got left. I don't want to do this till I'm 70 or 80 years old. I want to be able to retire and do the things that retired people do.
Yeah.
And I want to watch my kids grow up more. I want to go to more hockey games and more gymnastics meets and things like that. But there's just nothing like rodeo, and we all go for the buckle, and it is we can't take them with us when we go. Yeah. But I also believe that even though buckles don't define you, I also believe that God wants you to be successful, and He wants you to take the talents that He's given you and make the most out of them.
Yes.
Because I believe that this buckle is something to somebody else when they see it, and it's an inspiration to them, or it says, hey, he did it, or I like the way he did it, or whatever it is, or the path that he took was the right way to get it. Yeah. Those are the things. I just I don't want anybody to ever think that I'm a terrible politician. I'm not good at it, so I'm not a politicker to get jobs. I try to just do a good job, and word of mouth has made me a living. And I think if you do that and you put God first, and you show people that you put God first, that you'll get to where you're supposed to be. So,
Amen.
That's it.
I love that. Scott, one of the questions we always like to ask on our podcast are if there's someone that's wanting to get involved in rodeo, whether it be someone coming up from announcer side, whether it be a kid that wants to get involved in junior rodeo, is there any advice you have? Obviously your school, please share where they can find resources on that, but what would your advice be?
So my biggest advice is don't quit, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I supposed to be here? If you look at where I grew up, I'm not supposed to be here. Okay, I'm not supposed to be in Las Vegas. I'm not supposed to have the awards and accolades. I'm not supposed to be able to go to all of these towns if you truly think about it. And I talked to a high school business group a few months ago, and I said, who loves basketball? And a couple of them raised their hand, and I said, are you good enough to go pro? Well, no. I said, okay. Well, what's your favorite team? Well, it's the Lakers. And I said, do you want to work for the Lakers? Man, that'd be a dream come true. okay, work for the Lakers. Well, what would I do for the Lakers? I said, you might run their pro shop.
Yeah.
I said, you might run the sound in that building or the videos in that building. You might be the manager on the side of on the bench. I said, or maybe you're the GM for the entire building. You not only get to watch the Lakers play, but you get to see every concert that comes to that building. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think of that? And the kid's like, no. I just thought the only way to be a part of the Lakers was to play basketball.
Yep.
Okay, well, I said, don't let anybody tell you no. Like, you figure out a way. Like, I wanted to be a world champion, whatever it was. I didn't care. if I had a chance to ride bareback horses, I would have done it. If I would have had enough nerve to ride bulls, I would have done it. I wanted to be a world champion at something. That wasn't going to happen, okay? I wanted to be a roper. That wasn't going to happen. What else was I going to do? Okay, I still am too scared to fight bulls. Wasn't very funny. But I could figure out how to talk about it.
Yeah.
Blinders were on, I was going to do it. Mm-hmm. So my biggest advice is just don't let anybody tell you no. If this is what you want to do, try it. Mm-hmm. Like, try it and put your priorities in line. And also about goals. If a goal written down is just something you wrote on paper. Mm-hmm. You have to tell people your goals. Mm-hmm. You have to tell people what you want in life. Mm-hmm. And then I believe it will cultivate and become true. It's like, okay, I want to be an announcer of the year. I just announced it to everybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what I want to do. Okay, now I've said it. So that puts a little pressure on me that, okay, well, big mouth, you said it, you better go get it, you know? So those kind of things, I just think that's my biggest advice is, and then do it right. Just don't, if you have to walk on somebody to get to where you want to be, that's not worth it.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Don't break a friendship. And another thing that I opened up my school and I said, I raised my hand and I said, what is this? And I'm like, it's your hand. I said, you're right. How many fingers are on my hand? 5. This is how many true friends you have in the rodeo business.
Yeah.
Because it's the most cutthroat business that you're ever going to be a part of. I said, and I've got 5 fingers, but really about 2 that I know is going to have my back no matter what happens. That if I say, hey, this deal's looking for a guy and I'm going to go after it, there's about 2 or 3 people that I trust that I can tell that won't come back and stab me in the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And that's kind of sad. Yeah. But it's business. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's the same in any other kind of business.
Yeah.
But you figure out who to surround your people with, and if you ever have to step on somebody to get there, that wasn't worth it. Because at the end of the day, when I'm 80 years old and done, I want to be able to call my buddies and talk to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not just be sitting there drinking coffee by myself.
Yeah.
And it's just it's such a hard, fickle business that, if you do it right, you'll be able to sleep at night. And that's one thing I've always said. I've been able to sleep at night. I don't feel like I've ever intentionally done anybody wrong. At the end of the day, sometimes it is business, but I haven't walked on anybody to get to where I'm at. So that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give. And then, if you want to be better, you go to bigtoprodeo.net and come to my school or do a Zoom one-on-one session with me, and we'll see if we can't make you better and get you to where you want to be. So, because a lot of times you can't do it on your own. You need somebody to help you and teach you and have your back. And especially if you don't know. If you don't know, the worst thing you can do is try to fake it. Like, fake it till you make it. I hate that. I hate that idea because you can learn.
Yes.
You just have to have somebody to reach out to and learn. And some people will shun you and they'll tell you, no, I'm not going to help you. But then there's other guys that will help you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if you're a clown. Doesn't matter if you're an announcer, a specialty act, or an athlete. Mm-hmm. What we've got going on can help you. Whether it's in your business or whether it's in how do I market myself, or even with clowns, how do I dress? Mm-hmm. How do I what are guys looking for? Pick my mind. It might cost you a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, it's an investment in your business. And it's an investment in your future. So
and it's better than learning the hard way.
Exactly, because the hard way is tough.
Yes.
Learn from other people's mistakes.
Exactly. Learn from other people's. Let my mistakes teach you something. So.
Yeah. So for your school, is it a certain level of professional, or can you take entry level? Does it matter?
Like the last school, I had guys that had announced 2 or 3 barrel racings to guys that had their PRCA card in that seminar. So yeah, and the next group is even broader than that.
Yeah.
It's guys that have announced rodeos for 30 years, amateur rodeos for 30 years, that have called me and said, hey, can I learn anything? And my idea is, if you can't, you better quit.
Yeah.
So first off, so, I've got guys like that, and I've got guys that are just starting out. I've got guys that have never announced before in their lives, but they think they might want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's try it. And it's the same on the music director side with Jesse. Like, we had a kid that he showed up, and I think he might have had six songs on his computer when he showed up. And on the last day, there was a showcase where you had to announce a rodeo and you had to pick a music director to work with. Well, Jesse just said, hey, I'm going to give you my computer, mix as good as you can, and we'll see. So he mixes, and I'm like, holy cow, this kid's good. Like, he got it. And we were able to, Resistol is one of my sponsors. They gave us 2 hats, and we were able to give a hat away, and I said, let's do it for the most improved student in each. So I had the music director's vote and the announcer's vote, so it wasn't on us. And he got a new 40X hat, and it was the biggest thing of his life. And he's like, and he's coming back. Like,
That's
he already
awesome.
said, he goes, hey, can I come back to the March one?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give you a 25% discount, dude. Come on,
Yeah.
And he goes, I just think I can get better and better and better, but I need one more. I need more. So he's going to come back, and I've got announcers already that are like, hey, in the fall, let me see how the summer goes, see how I feel, and maybe in the fall I'll come back and just get a refresher. So yeah, it's for all levels, and it doesn't matter if you want to, if you're a radio DJ that thinks you have a good voice and you want to try something, or you just love rodeo, or you're a bull rider that's about to the end of his career, needs to find something to do. That's there too. We were talking about Nick earlier. I think Nick's going to maybe come to part of the music director side, and I've already talked to him a little bit about broadcasting stuff. So there's a need for storytellers, and we just have to train them up right. So
that's exciting. I love what you're doing, and I'm a big advocate for coaching, always have been, and I think that a lot of people could do a lot of good with that, even if they just have somebody to watch them that has their back. That's one of the reasons we like the team series, is because you have somebody there that genuinely is there to have your back and coach you along and make you better. And in just out on the road, that doesn't exist all the time. So if you got somebody that's willing to take that time and watch what you do and then give you some tips and coaching, like, that could be invaluable for a lot of guys.
Yeah, it's absolutely invaluable, because it might be just little bitty things on, like a couple guys, I changed their, just word selection. Or, hey, okay, stop saying ladies and gentlemen. You've done it too much. Like let's find another word. And you're always going to have a crutch word, But, or
it might be woo.
Yeah, exactly.
We know a guy.
Yeah.
or how do I get through this scenario?
Yes.
Or what if, crisis management's a big deal. Like, I ran into something this year for the first time ever in Abilene, Kansas. I get out of my truck, I get out of the bus, and I'm like, man, the weather's weird. And I've lived there my entire life. I know tornadoes. I get it. And I'm like, it doesn't feel that way, but something's brewing somewhere. Well, big windstorm in Salina. We're trying to start the rodeo. Emergency management comes up and says, everybody out of the grandstand. We've got lightning in the area. So I'm like, crap. Every time that we've had something like that, it's been after the rodeo's been over. For my 20-year career, okay? I have sat in the middle of the arena on a horse during a lightning storm that the judges haven't stopped, okay? People just leave and go do their own thing, and I've never asked them to go.
Yeah.
And for the first time, I have to ask them to leave. But I'm the one directing them where to go.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know that after they tell me, I know where they all need to go. Well, that's part of my school that I'm teaching, crisis management. You better find out where the tornado shelter is, and you better know. And you better know how to explain it calmly so that you're not freaking everybody out. If somebody has a heart attack in the stands, you need to know there's a second ambulance there. Who's going to take care of that? And those are all questions that you have to ask your rodeo committees, because how many times do we forget that? Or do we have a sled if something happens to an animal?
Yeah.
But we don't, a lot of times we don't ask those questions because we just think it's taken care of.
Yes.
Well, then when it happens, you're scrambling,
You're the guy directing.
You sound dumb because you're the master of ceremonies. You're the director of the orchestra. And that's why our job, we're not the most important part of the rodeo. Okay? Bar none. We are not the most important part of the rodeo. I don't think anybody is. But we are the directors of the orchestra.
Yes.
And a lot of times everybody at the end, when something bad goes down, they look at us.
Yeah,
And
1,000%.
how are we going to take care of this? Because we are the ones with the microphone. So, yeah, to be able to teach things like that, and like I said, even as long as I've been doing it, you have something new that comes up that you scramble to take care of, you know. But I've been doing it long enough that I can fake my way through. Fake it till you make it type of deal. But yeah, those are important key things that I'm also trying to portray and teach to my students, that you better know all of these little parts.
No, it's hugely
of what's
important. I
going
didn't
on.
think, I've never thought about that, because when we worked in the show, we literally did trainings on those situations.
Yeah.
We would get the sled out. We would do we would just have a training a month, and you had to sign the paper that you had the training. So something happens, they're not responsible for you not doing what you needed to do. But I've never even thought about that on the rodeo side of things. So that's such a good point. That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, you have to ask your committees, hey, and like I said, then you get lazy and you think they've already got it taken care of. Well, then if something happens and you realize the sled is stuck behind 2 pickup trucks because 2 guys got there early and their keys are locked in there and you can't get to it, well, guess what? Now you got to talk through that.
Yes, you got to talk through it.
And so I'm a very stickler now of one of the first questions in a production meeting that I ask is, okay, what do we do here? Are we prepared at this situation? And what do we need to do here? And it's just to ease my mind to know that, hey, the keys are in the right place.
Yep.
The ambulance is where it's supposed to be. And then, I've gotten lazy on it too. What if a guy gets hurt? And the ambulance leaves? Do we have a
backup?
Do we have a backup? Is one coming? Because we can't go on without it. And so there's a lot that goes through an announcer's mind. It's not just stats. It's not just talking about the Cowboys and the sponsors. There's a lot more things that get hinged on our shoulders that we have to kind of direct and make happen a lot of times. So,
that's awesome. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground, and I'm
this
very
has
happy
been
that
great,
we
Scott.
talked
We
about a
so
lot of this.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
And tell everybody one more time, if they want to get in contact with you, and then also if they want to book the school, when is the next one and how do they do it?
So March 19, 2021 is going to be the next one, and then we'll put one on in the fall. But just go to bigtoprodeo.net, and there you can book me to announce your events and register. And then if you send me an email through that, I'll send you registration for the school. You can also hit me up on social media at Scott D. Grover on Instagram, and I guess just Scott Grover on Facebook. You search for me, you're going to find me. And then, just send you a registration form and get signed up. And like I said, I don't know when this is going to air exactly, but I only got 2 spots left, which is pretty exciting for the spring one. So, and then if you can't get into the spring one, I'll roll you over to the fall one. We're ready. We're ready to do as much as we can to help people out.
Oh, and where are they located, just so people know as well?
In Kansas City.
Okay.
So literally 10 minutes from the airport. We use a hotel
awesome.
right there that has a free shuttle, so you can fly right into KCI if you're flying in, we got a brand new, beautiful airport now, so it's easy. And then, we just do everything right there at the 4 Point Sheraton, and you don't get to, and we do a lot on film. So we do a lot of, and one thing that we do is a lot of hands-on stuff. So like I throw you a scenario and go, what would you do? How would you announce this? Or give me your opening. And stuff like that. So guys will go, what? All right. You're not at a rodeo, but you still have to announce.
Yes.
Yep.
So I've always felt like, announcer school should be very hands-on. And if you don't use your voice and portray it out there to everybody for them to critique you or for me to critique you or whatever, then it doesn't do you any good. So, just right there in Kansas City. So literally a 20-minute drive for me, and then however everybody has to get to town. So.
Love it.
awesome.
It's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for taking time with us. And while we're at it, I want to thank the Rio and Matt Merritt for sharing his space with us.
Yes.
They gave us a spot to do this podcast, and we're really appreciative of them doing that.
Yeah, and shout out to Dalton for connecting us with
Oh, yeah, no,
we love
Dalton's
Dalton.
been great. Yeah,
He's been on a podcast like a bunch of times.
Oh, awesome. No, I appreciate the opportunity, and I just have such passion for the sport and passion for teaching others. So this is big for me to get my message out. So
Well, we appreciate you taking the time, and we'll put it out soon. Hopefully you're sold out already, but if you're not,
No, that's fine.
maybe we'll get 2 more in there.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.